Welcome to Behind the Book. It's time now for Behind the Book, hosted by Tess Thompson and Karen McQuestion, two authors with a passion for books, no filters, and limitless curiosity. Join them now to find out the real story behind your favorite books and authors. And now, Behind the Book.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Book. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Karen. How is it in Wisconsin today? Snow yet?
It has snowed and the temperature dropped and we have our tree up. It looks like Christmas here. So
Nice.
I have to say my favorite part of the whole podcast is when you call me your lovely co-host. Like warms my heart.
Oh, that's nice. You are my lovely co-host. All right. So today we had the pleasure of the Nook team joining us. However, we had a little hiccup. The software did not like all of us on there at once. We had 3 guests and then 2 co-hosts. And so Karen gracefully bowed out. So it's just me on the recording, if you guys are wondering where lovely Karen is.
Or maybe they're like, oh, good, that Wisconsin accent was driving me crazy.
No, I don't think so. But they were super fun and had a lot of insights into the industry and, kind of what's hot right now, and had some good advice for aspiring authors and all that. And they were just 3 very lovely, also lovely people. We were talking about it afterward, and I was thinking about how you think of, Nook is this platform and this and that, but it's actually run by real people. So to me, it's fun to, kind of see the people behind the machine or whatever. So it was a good time. I'm sorry you weren't there.
It will forever be known as the episode where you told Karen to leave and you locked the door behind me.
Yeah. Don't let the door slam you on the, what's the saying? Don't let the door hit you on the way out or whatever.
Yes, that was it. I was just walked out of my office all dejected. And
it was a very sad day. What else is going on? Anything interesting in your world?
Well, actually, I'm a little tired, if you have to know. And do you want to know why?
Yeah, I do.
My daughter gave Greg, my husband, her father, for Father's Day, tickets to the Green Bay Packers football game. They were playing their biggest rivals, the Chicago Bears. So last night they drove up to Green Bay, which is, I don't know how far it is from our house, 2.5 hours or something drive. And he said, I'll be back by midnight, so don't wait up.
Right.
So I took him at his word. I did watch the game on TV and the Packers won, which was always a good thing. They would come back, triumphant and euphoric. And They actually didn't get back until 2 a.m. So I heard them come in, the light went on, I could, and then our cat was excited because people were here now and she thought it was morning apparently. And and so I'm not someone who can fall back asleep really easily. I did manage to, but as I was laying there, I was thinking, I wonder why the Green Bay Packers hate me so much. You'd think they had plenty to do with the training and everything else. And
and it's always nerve-wracking when, at least I find, when the kids or Cliff are out somewhere late, because I just always worry. And especially this time of year with icy roads and everything.
That was exactly my mindset too. I don't think I was in a deep sleep. I was sort of waiting for them to come back and then wondering what the delay was. As it turned out, thousands of people leaving a stadium parking lot takes a long time. So that was the delay. But they loved every minute, even the delays. They had the best time sitting there in their coats and snow pants. And just totally bundled up, those little hand warmers. Mm-hmm. And I was glad to not be there.
Yeah, when you started this story, I was thinking to myself, I would not have thought Karen would go to the game, but now I see.
No. Greg somehow managed to get 2 of our 3 kids to be very enthusiastic Green Bay Packers fans. Jack and I are sort of not quite there, but that's okay.
Well, Cliff and I are huge Seahawks fans. He's a huge sports fan in general, and especially football. And none of the 4 kids are into it at all.
Really? You didn't get one.
not one. And it's especially devastating to him because, it's like there's 4 of them. It seems like one of them would be into, and Emerson, is a cheerleader. So she's into her high school games, but not the Seahawks. So,
well, Maria's story is that Greg used to, before the game, he had this ritual where he'd put out all his snacks on the coffee table, and then she would come around for the snacks, and then she'd be there and she would ask him, she was a little girl at the time, what was going on with the game, and he'd explain it to her. And so he lured her in with food, and she actually learned to really love the game. And now they call each other if they're not together watching the game, like the phone will ring at halftime, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Maria.
That's so cute to me. Oh my gosh. I tried to lure them in with the snacks. That was totally my strategy. Did not work. They would come in for the snacks and then they would leave.
Oh, darn. I think you had to get them when they're a little younger.
Yeah, it was too late. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, we will, if you don't have any other news to share, we'll go ahead and get started on this interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. On with the show. Hey everybody, I am excited today because we have the Barnes & Noble Press / Nook folks here today with us. This is such a treat, and I'm so excited that they were able to find time in their schedules. So we have Julie Braunschweiger, who most of the indie press folks know because she is the one who helps us with everything and is beloved in the indie writing community. Susan McCulloch and Albert Wu. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hello, Tess. Thank you.
Good to be here.
So we normally do a bio, but since there's 3 of you, I thought you guys could each take turns just telling me a little bit about yourselves and how you got into the book biz.
So this is Susan speaking here. So I'm the senior director of Nook, and I've been with Barnes & Noble for longer than I want to probably reveal. But, the question about what brought me into books is, it goes all the way back to childhood. When we used to go on car trips, because we couldn't afford to go on many trips, I would always make sure I had backup books. I'd bring 3 and the 4th one just in case I ran out. And then, that just kind of got parlayed over the years, dipping into a little bit of writing. I was an English major, so on and so forth. And I went through the ranks with publishing houses and ended up on the retail side, and straddling both, honestly, with B&N Press and the retail world.
How about you, Julie?
So I guess I always loved reading and storytelling. I also was an English literature major, as well as a creative writing major in college. But before I actually started at Barnes & Noble and before I got into books, I worked in the entertainment industry out in California for a few years. And then I guess I wanted to switch gears. So I took a job when I came back to New York, working as a bookseller for a small independent bookstore. That's sort of where I reassessed some things. And then I knew I wanted to work in books, so I applied for a job with what had been Nook Press. I didn't know anything about self-publishing at the time. It was all new to me, but since coming into this world, I'm continually impressed and inspired by the independent author community, and I love how self-published authors have influenced publishing, and I look forward to seeing, what comes next for everyone.
How about you, Albert?
Hi, my name is Albert Wu, and I am the Director of Product Management for for B&N Press. I work with the folks on the business team, the technology and the design teams to understand the needs of the business and the authors. And, I work with the teams to gather requirements and come up with feature ideas. And, I set the product roadmap. I've been working with Barnes & Noble for 20 years now. I started with very little knowledge about the book business. I was hired as a developer, and I worked very closely with booksellers to, build and update pages on barnesandnoble.com. Everybody was a reader on my team, so I wasn't back then when I was first starting out. So just to make sure I fit in, I quickly binged, the Harry Potter series just so I could pretend like I was a book reader like everybody else. And since then, my role has developed from being a developer to a product manager, and now working with the Barnes & Noble Press team to help build out their product.
Your story about the books is kind of like me with football. I pretended like I liked it because I lived in Seattle, and then all of a sudden I did like it. It could happen, right? Yeah.
In some cities, you have to, right? You have to be a fan of football. Otherwise, everybody looks at you funny, or you have nothing in common with with any of your friends or neighbors.
That's exactly it, right? All right, so there have been tons of changes in the publishing world, not only with the rise of indie publishing, but some of the houses merging, or a lot of the houses merging. What have you guys, witnessed? What do you see coming up? What are some of the changes that have been both befuddling and or exciting?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. You come at it from a bunch of different angles. But the one thing that always strikes me is that sometimes when you're in the industry, you think like an industry person. I did work for a couple of the big houses. For example, Simon & Schuster. This was years and years ago. But, they went to Paramount, and they were part of Viacom, and then CBS owned them. And I remember at one point, we were spending so much time and energy on the colophon, the little sewer guy who's the imprint, the kind of the look of stuff. And I remember even back then, I was like, wow, we are wasting so much time and energy when a customer has no clue what a colophon is. They don't care about the imprint. But that being said, I think there are subconscious effects to those tweaks that you do to keep yourself fresh. So I don't dismiss it completely, but I do think you sometimes have to take a step back and go, okay, where are we spending our energy? And it really should be on the customer and the reader. Right now, I think it's all about discovery, quite honestly. So it could be the contracting and shrinking of the big houses and the little houses, but how are we just making sure the good works get in front of the customers, whether it's indie or big or what have you. Now, as Barnes & Noble, we do, play ball with the big guys quite a bit. And so, this team here, Julie, Al, and I, we're pulling on the shirt tails of our colleagues and making sure that indie gets the notice that they deserve.
I know, like, in the last number of years since I've joined, and somewhat biased since I work primarily with our indie authors, I've really seen how the position of indie content has become more advanced within BNN and Nook. I know our team works really hard to make sure that, the indie community is valued, and support has increased pretty substantially, I think, across the board, from leadership at the top on down to working more closely in the weeds every day with, our ebook merchandisers, for instance. So we are no longer siloed as much as we were. We're very much considered a vital part of the conversation when it comes to driving sales, along with things like improving that customer experience on our different retail systems.
And from a product perspective, I could say that as the indie publishing grows, we have to challenge ourselves to devote more resources, to build better features, to make it easier for not only the beginner author, but also the very advanced authors out there. And they have to be unique. They have to be special in order to compete with, the other platforms out there. And we may even build things for our indie authors that are not available for our larger publishers, because we have a very niche group of folks that will grow with us, right, and are open to new ideas.
Yeah, well, I was interested to know, because I can't remember a time when you guys weren't around the indie portion of your business, because I was with a publisher, in the beginning of my career and everything. And when I went indie, I was like, oh, here's a Nook, and look at this wonderful interface. I love it. I love what you did with it, Albert. We talked about this before, but I find it so easy to use and load books and get data. So thank you for that. Can you tell us a little bit behind the scenes? How did it become an idea for Barnes & Noble to even, take on the indie press world?
Well, I think at the time when Nook was just first ramping up, I had the pleasure of working for a woman by the name of Teresa Horner, who is also an industry kind of veteran. And I just remember that she just saw that unsung part of the book publishing world, because she had been in it too. Like she's same with me. Like, she was on the traditional side. She goes to this digital side of this retailer who didn't necessarily have visibility into all the other, channels that were out there. So, I remember, she was a spitfire, and she would just, walk around with her, torch in hand, and she just really made it happen. And I really just think it was her love of books and love of reading, and knowing that there was that underserved market. It was as simple as that. And she had a strong voice and a good sense of humor.
Yeah, well, you have to in this industry, right? One must remain flexible, because whatever today is, tomorrow will not be. So I'm curious if you guys have any advice for either aspiring authors or new authors, either traditionally published or, hoping to be traditionally published or indie published, what advice would you guys have just from the other side of the table?
Well, when it comes to self-publishing, I think the main ingredients seem to be, number one, genre. So things like romance, mystery, science fiction. And then two, series. Especially, indie ebooks have lower price point audiences are primed more than ever to binge on content. So writing a series seems to be a really great way to kickstart, that steady career. And I know a lot of indie authors, even veterans, will write out like an entire series first and then release the books either, in groups or over the course of months with the goal of keeping readers as engaged as possible.
I had written some notes from this question. I literally said the same thing to myself. The series is really, really great. And that goes back to being a kid again, too. I remember reading an author and I just go back to the library and look for that same author over and over again. And I'd always be disappointed there wasn't a new one on the shelf, not realizing it took, 2 years sometimes to write a book. But it's just that more feeling.
Are you seeing, in addition to series, are you seeing any genres or subgenres that are really hot right now? Has anything changed since the pandemic?
Yeah, I think there's always like those tried and true genres, but I guess subgenres, seeing more women's fiction, whether that's, paranormal mysteries or more historical fiction. Also like traditional British mysteries, I see are gaining some momentum or have been there, but they're just getting more eyes. So I'm seeing a lot more of that.
The Bridgerton effect.
Yes, that for sure. Along with just, I think, people wanting escape reads, just something that takes them out of the normal, day to day of what these last couple of years have been.
Yeah, I would agree. I think people are looking for an escape. And I also think that people are looking to go like on a journey, which is I think why women's fiction maybe is doing better, because it has that, exploration of self and potentially outside of the home. So I think it's that, being able to see yourself in that journey.
I kind of love where Amanda Gorman is now positioned. That she's a household name. Poetry, poetry is really hard to get an audience for. And we all know why. I mean, she had a platform that, elevated her, but it's had legs and it's continuing. And so even though we have our tried and trues, I don't think that we should be scared to try other things as well.
Yeah, just to chime in, I do agree. Poetry is, I definitely see a lot more like poetry stuff with us and kids' books as well.
I know we talked about it earlier, but, audiobooks. I started listening to audiobooks, especially during my commutes to work. And now with the pandemic and we're working from home, I stopped using that format. I've gone back to ebooks again.
Well, speaking of which, have you seen any interesting trends since the pandemic as far as more ebook readers versus more, versus paperbacks or anything like that?
Well, I mean, what I would say is that we definitely saw an uptick in ebook sales for sure. And that was amazing because it really did kind of cement our place in the organization's P&L, if you will. So yeah, now it has leveled out again a little bit, but I think, that again, that escapism, you're stuck in your house. So I think the quantity of reading grew over the pandemic. And now people are getting back to their lives and they're reading a little bit less again. And where does that sit next to physical? I don't know that the trend has been bucked. I think there are those that still love to read physical, paperback or hardcover, and those who love to read digital. And I think it's leveled out to those kinds of ratios that we'd seen prior to COVID. It was just the volumes.
That's been my experience as a seller myself. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
Sorry. No. I was just going to say, I'm curious about, these digital readers, people who read ebooks, but potentially also will do audiobooks like Al, right? And seeing what sort of overlap comes as audiobooks continues to expand and really become more pronounced in this space.
Yeah, it's really interesting about audiobooks just because I think they were, on such the rise, and then the pandemic happened. But I think they're probably going back now that everybody's like, oh yeah, I do have to drive into work now and I can't wear my pajamas. This is back to normal. Those of us who aren't writers anyway. All right, so I wanted to ask you a little bit about Elliott. So Barnes & Noble was bought by Elliott last year or the year before. The company that owns Waterstones, which is the largest retailer in the UK. Have there been changes for you guys since the acquisition? And what are you excited about this coming year?
So for me, again, because I've been here a while, and Al, you have as well, we have been through a lot of different management changes. At the head, the chairman of the board for the longest time, who is no longer our head. So there was always a love of books, always at the heart. And it's one of the reasons why I've stayed with the company that long. But I think over time, we became victims of our own processes and protocols. So there was a lot of long timers, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I think what the CEO and the board has brought has been fresh eyes. And they've gotten us to rethink what we've always done in the past. And because they are who they are, they want results pretty quickly. So we now have been forced to be more nimble. I think before we might have cogitated a little more on the different steps and strategies that we wanted to take. And now we're going faster, we're more experimental. And I am super excited about some of the changes that have been happening. But if you are someone who gets Barnes & Noble emails, just as an example, just look at how those have changed over the last few months. They're just fresher. The graphics are funner, if I can say that. There's just, it's really a new kind of look, same as in the stores. So, not every store has been completely renovated at this point, but you are seeing changes in terms of signage and how things are laid out, and focus on regional titles, which I think is a really great shout out for indies, because the CEO is very big on letting regional stores pick books that resonate with their communities. And that is opening up opportunity for indie publishers and authors to get their work seen in their local markets.
So this kind of is the same question as, what advice do you have for authors to write the next bestseller? But on the marketing side, is there anything that you see that you think to yourself on a daily basis, the author community should be doing X when it comes to marketing? Or have they thought of this? What marketing advice would you have?
I think Julie's the best person to answer this, but I am going to say one thing, because it rankles me, right? Just like Kleenex is ubiquitous for tissues, one of our competitors is ubiquitous for reading, digital reading. So just keep, and I'm not just saying just us, keep everyone in mind. All retailers, the indie bookstores, all of that should be part of an author's reach when they're out there touting a book and saying, where can you buy it? To always just put it into that one bucket is limiting. And I think that hurts us a bit, but it also hurts the author and hurts the publisher.
So I guess definitely echoing Susan's thoughts there, and the idea that, there's a lot of different ways to go about being an indie publisher. And I think in general, with Barnes & Noble Press, we're not necessarily competing in that space particularly. We have our loyal readers, which I think we can speak very highly about. I think our Nook readers are incredibly loyal. They are less price conscious, I think, but they still love a good deal. So one of the things I would suggest, and I think this goes in general with any kind of retailer, but especially with ours, is, playing with that sort of discounting or sale price, doing exclusive offers by using our coupon tool and our buy one, get one tool, which then allows for, bypassing any price matching and things like that. And then just like a very simple one is just making sure you have a good cover. And I know that sounds like such a simple answer, but it's so true, because, that's the first thing that your readers are going to see and judge a book by. And it's not just your readers, actually, it's, our marketing teams that look at those covers and pick them out for whether that goes on social media or email or anything like that. So you want to make sure that your books look as good as any other book out there by the trade publishers or by, bigger authors.
And that it tells the reader what subgenre it is just from one glance. Yeah. I think that's harder to nail sometimes for the authors than we would like to admit. And sometimes, as in my case, it takes a couple iterations sometimes. That's another whole story. All right. So I'm curious what kind of fiction you guys enjoy, other than Harry Potter. Is there anything that you have been binging lately, or is anything you'd love to share with our readers?
I'm probably the least sophisticated reader in this group. I like, popular fiction or, fiction that was recently made into movies. So I read all the Crazy Rich Asian series. I read all the Twilight, the Hunger Games. And just because I was talking to Julie and Susan, I said, I need to read more indie authors because I want to support our community. And so I told Julie, I picked the Jennifer Armentrout series, Blood and Ash, thinking, based on judging the book by its cover, that it was a Game of Thrones / type of series. And then Julie was like, yeah, you didn't guess right. So I'm reading it now. I've committed to it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to finish it.
That's a tricky one. I agree. That is a tricky one. I can see why you were fooled.
But Al, are you enjoying it? That's the real question.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
She is an amazing writer, definitely.
Yeah, we love working with her. I can chime in and just say I read a lot of historical fiction, and then also fiction that has like a female feminist angle. Sometimes those come together in one book. Sometimes they're separate. So like just a couple of examples, I recently read The Cold Millions, which is just like historical fiction about two brothers, and I really, really loved it. And then I read A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum, which is about like women growing up in Brooklyn and this Palestinian family. And it was absolutely fantastic.
Then meanwhile, there's me. I tend actually more towards nonfiction. So I'll read a lot of biographies and memoirs and things like that. When it comes to fiction, I was telling people my little review of it, but the Cloud Cuckoo Land book, which has gotten such acclaim this year, I did that. I read it, and it was like I needed to find my sea legs again, because I don't know, through COVID, I just didn't have the capacity or something. I was all about light, everybody's into the binge watching and light reading and all that kind of stuff. So here I did, I picked up this book, and it really is quite dense, and it's got so many different storylines and so many references to to history and so on and so forth. Anyway, it took me a little while, and finally I got my groove with it, but I did have to do some rereading of passages to get me there. But I'm really glad I did. And now, go back to something a little lighter, and that's how I roll. You kind of go from this to something heavier, to something lighter, to nothing at all sometimes.
That's on my list, the Cloud Cuckoo Land. It's on my list of books to read. I do say I'm part of a book club. And what's so nice about it is everyone has different tastes in our book club. So I end up reading like a lot of very different books that I would not normally read. And that's what's so exciting, like when you find a book that you wouldn't necessarily pick up, but then you really enjoy it, or you get such a different perspective or a new thing from it. And that's kind of the magic of books, by not judging by covers or genres in general.
Yeah, that's very true about a book club too, that it pushes you to read different things. All right, this was not on the question list, but I'm curious if it's like when you have I have a sister-in-law who's a nurse practitioner, and we're always asking her medical questions. And half the time she's like, I have no idea. Like, that's a specialty. Why are you asking me? But at like holiday parties, family gatherings, does everybody ask you what they should be reading?
I feel like sadly, no. Yeah.
We talk about what we watched on Netflix.
Okay, so it's like everybody, I guess.
Well, you know what though, Tess? I'll take that back, because on Thanksgiving, my sister came with a bag of books that she had gotten from somebody else. And then we all spread them out on the table, and then people were grabbing and reading the flap copy or whatever and picked what they were gravitating towards.
I feel like when I meet new people and I tell them I work for Barnes & Noble, and that's when I get like what books are there? Like, what books do you recommend? But like my family and friends, they like already know me. And so they're just like, I don't need to bother.
I know. I keep expecting my family to ask me, well, what's your latest book and how do I get it? But nobody ever asked me that either. So, I guess they're just used to us.
Well, it's like your kids not knowing what you do for a living, like to this day, I still have to ask my dad, what did you do for 50 years?
I don't think my parents ever knew what I did for a living.
Well, yeah, the more technical your job, the less other people understand what it is.
Yeah.
So speaking of your jobs, what are your favorite parts?
I'll go first. I love working directly with the authors. My favorite thing actually is when like an author writes in to tell me that a promotion or some sort of effort that we did, boosted their book. I know I'm doing my job right when I'm helping, our authors find readers and sell books. Because I just really want you guys to be successful at what you do. I love that part. Honestly, it's like, it makes my day. Same
for me, other than besides working with Julie and Susan, and, we have a wonderful Yeah. Julie, I guess you didn't feel the same about me, but,
Love my team.
But we have a wonderful technology team. They're great at what they do. And so whatever ideas we come up with, they can they can help create. But like Julie said, I love working with our author community. They are not afraid of telling us what they want. So as somebody that needs to come up with product ideas, it's very easy because we're being told constantly from our users, what they'd like to see. And so, we do have a beta group of authors that help us test new features all the time. And because with their help, we're able to iterate on features. We can decide, this didn't work exactly right. We're going to change it a little bit. And so we go through a few iterations before we finally release it to all the users. So that's a great thing. In my previous roles, I would get user feedback from A/B testing or usability testing, but nothing really beats just getting direct feedback from authors.
That's exactly what I think as well, is that we don't have the middleman, right? I don't have to go through a publisher to get to the author or through an agent to get to the author. Like, to just have that direct dialogue is great. So I really appreciate that. And, the team at Barnes & Noble, the people are just fantastic. I mean, we just, being with book people day in and day out or through Zoom or whatever, but the fact that we're not working in insurance or banking, and we there's a sense of humor, and there's just a, real sense of community.
Are you guys back into an office setting, or are you all still working from home?
Bit of a hybrid right now. Being on the digital side of the business, there's less imperative for us to physically have to be there, though it definitely has its advantages. I always say, so I've been going in here and there, as has the others, and nothing beats being able to just swing by somebody's desk and say, "Hey, how's your family?" Blah, blah, blah. "Oh, and by the way, can we just solve this one thing in 2 minutes rather than 3 phone calls and a Teams chat?" There's a real advantage to that. But I don't miss the commute into New York City. So I'm glad it's hybrid right now, where we kind of pick and choose.
Great. Well, what are some parts of your business or the platform that you think maybe authors don't know about that you'd like to share?
I think one of the biggest things is, making sure you use our coupon tool, our BOGO tool. If you're trying to create sort of more exclusive deals for Nook readers, obviously people like to feel special. And if you're getting a special deal with your BOGO or your coupon code, you can put that in your newsletters or on social media, stuff like that. I think that is a really unique feature. I think going direct in general with B&M Press is always a good idea, not just because you make more money with our 70% flat royalty right now, but, you do get some exclusive benefits. There's some more marketing opportunities, email opportunities, social opportunities, and other promotions that you wouldn't get without, directly uploading with us.
And Tess, I would love to just kind of call out something that maybe is on the less positive side, possibly. But we know that Barnes & Noble has this footprint, this amazing chain of stores across the country. And what author doesn't want to be in a Barnes & Noble store? And we struggle with that sometimes. Like, how do we create a seamless avenue for indie authors to get on the shelves of Barnes & Noble? And I would be remiss not to kind of call out that it hasn't been seamless up to now. It really fits and starts, and we've tried different things, and the model has never been, rock solid. But I do want to underscore what I said a little bit earlier, is that James Daunt, our CEO, is very much into regional buying. And we have seen movement on that front where someone can approach our very approachable booksellers and say, "Hey, I have this book. I'm a local author. I would love to talk to you about possibly, getting on your shelf." So those dialogues and conversations can happen. Julie, Al, and I, we are constantly looking at ways where we can create, what we say, operationalize. Mm-hmm. It's a $10 word that we use in our company, but how can we do it in an easier way? How can we create an avenue for these authors? So I'm hopeful that in 2022 we'll make some progress there.
In-store stuff is like my white whale since I've been with Barnes & Noble Press. I'm like, why isn't this working? How can we get it to work? I want it to work so badly. So it is, just to reiterate what Susan said, it's definitely something I'm hopeful for in the new year.
I did want to mention one thing that I meant to share with Julie before. When I first started out, this has been 10 years ago, and I was with a small press, you guys actually were responsible for my career, because I had one book out, brand new book, brand new author, and I'm somebody at your company put my book on the great deals under $5.99. And my publisher at the time called me. I was on my way to the airport with my family. We were going to Hawaii for a family vacation. And she said, "Oh, did you see that you were in the newsletter this morning?" I was like, "No, that's great." By the time I arrived in Hawaii, 6 hours or later or whatever, it was the #1 Nook book. And it stayed there for like 15 weeks or something. And so those readers, you say loyal, they have been with me all this time. And they buy whatever, not maybe all 15,000 of them or whatever it was that day, or, whatever the numbers are. But a lot of those readers have stuck with me. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. Just as you guys are doing things that matter to a lot of people, not just readers, but also all the authors that you support. So thank you so much for that.
It's like an injection. It just keeps us going, So
yeah, that's fantastic.
Great. I was just going to say, I wonder, I would love to know which book and like around when it was.
Yeah, I can tell you almost exactly. It's called River Song. And like I said, it was my first book. And it was in, I think, October of 2012 is probably, or 2011. I can't remember which year it was. It might have been 2012, but we got such a kick out of it. It was my aunt and uncle we were visiting, and they had a place in Hawaii, and she was constantly checking the rankings, and she's like, "Oh, you're still there," and it just went on and on. It was just a really fun, special thing for our family, and basically kind of launched my career. And that was before the Kleenex company gave me the time to create. So we're just gonna point that out too. So I will always be loyal to Nook. All right, so we have fun extra questions at the end. And what I thought is we'd just go around alphabetically. So Al, Julie, Susan, and you guys can all answer.
Okay.
But what is one food that will never get past your lips?
I'm a very adventurous eater. So in my recent travels, I've eaten like crickets and scorpions and snails and alligators and all this weird stuff. But I will not eat a balut. I don't know if you know what it is. A balut, B-A-L-U-T. It didn't seem like a big deal when it was first offered to me, but it's a fertilized, developed like egg embryo that's boiled, and you just crack the shell and you eat it with a spoon. And I was like, oh, no big deal, until I saw feathers. And then I was like, there's no way I'm eating this.
Hard pass.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. Like, no.
My choice is not as exotic. I actually just really don't like bananas. I think the smell, texture, and taste are gross.
I have a daughter that's the same way. Yeah, really. Except they don't have feathers.
And I'm going to stick with the egg theme. Like, do not put a runny egg in front of me. I will run away. I cannot stand eggs.
It's easy to freak you guys out.
Yeah, they're not as hardcore as you, Al. Yeah. All right, who would you want to play you in a movie?
So I thought about this, and it's going to be Keanu Reeves, because we both look so much alike. But honestly, it's because my wife has a crush on him, and he's #1 on her celebrity list. So I thought it would be really great if he played me in a movie.
For myself, my first gut reaction is Rachel Weisz, just because I love her. But I guess someone more contemporary would be Florence Pugh or Alicia Vikander.
And I am not as young as Julie, so I skewed a little. But I picked Emma Thompson. I love her because she can do funny, she can do down to earth, she can do real serious. So that's my choice.
Yeah, those are good choices, you guys. I like those. What superpower would you pick given the opportunity?
So I hate walking. Even though you're supposed to be able to walk anywhere in New York City.
You're a New Yorker.
But I hate walking. And my wife and I, we've run 12 marathons between the two of us. And so I think my superpower would be the ability to fly.
I like that. I, without a doubt, I'd want teleportation. I'd love to be able to go anywhere at any time with the snap of my finger. That just sounds so appealing to me.
Mine, I'm going to sound like I'm all taking the high ground, but I thought about this. I would like to be a healer. I wish I could just put my hands on someone and kind of extinguish their suffering, physical or mental suffering. So a little super Mother Teresa or something.
You'd be super busy with those superpowers.
My hands
You would be busy. That's true.
Yeah.
No, it's funny that you say that one because mine is teleporting, and it never occurred to me to do something nice for other people.
I know.
Also had healing. I was like, God, I am a bad person.
I'm going to change
I'm
my
going
answer.
to Paris.
I want to be a healer too. I think I'll walk to the healing appointments since I can't fly.
Yeah, that's right. What's your biggest guilty pleasure?
I always have a vice. So my number one vice is beer. I'm a big craft beer person. And, occasionally when I tell myself I'm not going to have any beer because I want to be healthy, then it's ice cream. But of course, that's not healthy either.
Ice cream is amazing. It's like my favorite thing. But if it's a guilty pleasure, I'm a big Bachelorette fan. And I wouldn't even say actually that it's a guilty pleasure at this point because I'm not even embarrassed because I find it just so utterly fascinating and entertaining.
I'm sticking. I don't know why I keep following you, Al, and now you, Julie, but ice cream for me. So I don't feel guilty eating ice cream, but it's the quantity that I can put away. Like I can like have an oven mitt with the Ben & Jerry's pint and I'll still be looking for more afterward. I could just keep going. So
I eat ice cream with an oven mitt too. That's so
to get on
weird.
this
Oh,
level.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that could be a team building, exercise for you guys. Yeah. Let's see here. What is the worst job you've ever had?
Ooh, for a summer, I worked at Publisher Clearinghouse, sorting mail, the mailed entries, for, the $1 million prize. Like I would probably sort thousands and thousands of entries that come in. And that's what I would do for 8 hours a day.
Sounds thrilling, Al.
And I don't know, like there's occasionally one entry that gets mangled in the machine and I feel bad and I throw it away.
Hanging chad.
And then I'm like, maybe that was the one that would have won the $1 million, but I just threw this person's entry away because it got mangled in the machine.
Wow.
Yeah, Al, it's all your fault.
Yeah, I held that person's destiny in my hands.
Oh God. On my end, it's not one job per se, and it wasn't. I wouldn't say the worst thing in the world, but I was really not cut out to work in the entertainment industry. I did not have the temperament to deal with like a lot of the machinations that go on. Kudos to those who can do it. It wasn't for me, so I learned within the 4 years that I lived in LA and worked out there that I really needed to switch course.
In my worst job, I was in college and I accepted a job taking phone calls for a timeshare. Like I was in this trailer in Pennsylvania, answering calls and asking terrible questions of people who just wanted a free TV. And it was awful. But the lucky thing for me was I got to go back to college after 3 months, and some of those were lifers in that trailer. So yeah, never again.
If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be?
I would want to be an expert in speaking any language, right? In any language that I can learn.
I love that one.
Just because my wife and I travel a lot, and English is my primary language, and I don't speak any Cantonese or Mandarin, which I should because I'm Chinese. And I think when you speak somebody's language, it brings such joy to people. There's this YouTuber that I follow, and he's this Caucasian guy, and he walks around like different like Chinatowns, and he speaks Mandarin to them fluently, and the reaction and the joy that comes out of these people's onto these people's faces is so amazing.
For me, I love to sing, and I've been like singing all my life, but I'd love to be like as good as Julie Andrews or Linda Ronstadt, who are two of my absolute favorite vocalists of all time. So if I could be like an expert as a singer, I would want that.
Kind of like Julie. So dancing. I love dancing. I'll work it at weddings, and I know whoever is listening to this, if they're my family, they're going to just raise an eyebrow. We're like, yeah, we know. But I would love to be a chorus girl on a Broadway show, or whatever that is. It's
awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great. Another lifetime.
Dancing's amazing.
Next holiday party.
Yeah. Those are all good answers. I want all those answers too. What's your favorite scent?
Ooh. So for me, you guys are going to be like, what? That's weird. I love the smell of a puppy's feet or their paws.
It's so specific, Al.
They smell like Doritos because, I mean, I could say like, I love the smell of caramel or like vanilla or like my favorite perfume or cologne, but there's something very comforting about smelling a dog's foot.
Okay.
Yeah. Weird, right?
You know what? As someone who loves puppies, I'm going to give it to you. That is
Okay.
That is a good one. Mine is like lavender. Like I just love the smell of lavender. I find it very comforting. But also like I love wood burning fire, pine needles, and like fallen leaves. So I'm looking for a candle of all of those. If anyone has any recommendations.
Once again, Al, you go first, and now I'm like, oh, a baby's head. Love the smell of a baby's head.
That's my favorite. Is the baby's head. Yeah.
But I had thought ahead of time, and an Easter hyacinth. Love those too.
Ooh, I love hyacinth.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are nice. That's a good one. I've never heard that one either, Susan. That's a new one. What is the most terrifying thing you've ever done?
I've done some crazy things. Like I've gone skydiving and climbing, and I've even fallen off a motorcycle before, racing it around a racetrack. But I would say those are terrifying as when I had to propose to my wife and then my wedding day.
So for me, I've done a couple like more dare-defying things. Like I swam with sharks, I ski, so I've like done some pretty difficult runs. But I think the most terrifying thing, like personally, was when I moved to Los Angeles right after college, and I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know anything about living there, so I just went out there all on my own, and it was an adventure.
Yeah, you get props for that. That is a big deal.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's a big one. Yeah.
And my most terrifying thing was childbirth.
No.
And it seems like a common answer, but there is a point during labor where it's like a freight train coming on you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You're like, how's this going to work? How's this going to finish?
I know. You're thinking, can I back out now, or is it too late?
There's no going back. And you just got to see it to the end. But it's also the most euphoric thing after the fact.
Okay, what's one thing you're really bad at?
I'm really bad at cooking. I can follow directions really well, but for some reason, I can't follow recipes. Even if I follow them exactly to the T, whatever I cook is just awful. But give me a piece of IKEA furniture, and I will follow the directions, and it'll be a great cabinet.
That's good to know, Al. If I ever have furniture that I need you to put someone together,
Or if you need
you.
me to like do laundry, I'll follow the labels on your sweater to a T.
So I have like really terrible handwriting, and I feel embarrassed when I have to like write something out because it's so awkward looking. And I also take terrible notes by hand because I can't read what I write. So I envy people who have nice handwriting, and it's actually one of the reasons why I like always being on my laptop to be able to write my notes out, because if you ask me to read my own handwriting, it's like chicken scratch.
One thing that I'm really bad at is swimming. I never really learned properly. I'm not going to drown, but I can't do your arm over your head. I mean, I can kind of tread water and swim around underwater, but terrible, not good.
If you could live your life over again, would you?
So it depends. I'm going to say no, but it depends. We're going to get all geeky and say, well, is it like Back to the Future? If I do one thing, it's going to change everything about my life, then
right.
I'm going to say no, because I don't want to risk changing anything that I love. But if I'm just along for the ride and I just get to experience my life's moments again, without affecting anything, that I would, especially since I have such a bad memory, that I've probably forgotten more than anything else, that I would love to relive some of those moments that way.
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was a tough question because it's like, would I just have all the knowledge of like my current life? Because like, if so, yeah, probably I'd want to go and like re-experience things, or also maybe make less mistakes. But if not, I'm glad for the person I am today, even if things like didn't always go as planned or were hard, because, all that kind of adversity and stuff leads to growth and awareness. So, yeah.
But you can't change those mistakes, Julie, because if you change those mistakes, it throws off your future.
I know, but at the same time, you always go back and you're like, well, what if I went to this college instead of that place, or this or that? We wouldn't be
on this podcast right now.
Yeah, but if I have all the knowledge before, I can make sure I get there, right?
You're like, Tess, you don't know me, but can we do a podcast on December? I'm in the entertainment business, in Hollywood, but
yeah.
Honestly, I can't add anything that you guys haven't already said. It's the same challenge, right? Which would, if I could just pick and choose parts, that would be great. But if you're doing it all over again, I am who I am because of what I've been through, and all the pain and suffering that might have been involved. It's what got me here. So.
All right. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm glad you guys were able to figure out some time in your schedule for this. And I know a lot of our listeners will really enjoy hearing some kind of insights into the book biz from your perspective. So we appreciate that. Thanks again, guys. And I will see you sometime soon, I'm sure. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Book, brought to you by authors Tess Thompson and Karen McQuestion. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and post a question in the comment section. This has been Behind the Book.